Hello?
Hello.
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 Hello, welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty good too. Thank you for asking.
All right, excellent. So let's go ahead and um, maybe you can tell me first and foremost, like, how's the reception been to the game so far, and if there's any any like dominant feedback that you've already received.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. So I think the reception was pretty good. People seem to like the art style, the sound, that sort of stuff. But I think the biggest sort of criticism that I definitely agree with is the actual RG factor. You know
Mhm.
that the game is pretty tricky to beat, and it's just sometimes not fair that you have to wait for a certain I don't know crop, for example. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. The designers actually did already come up with some cool solution to that, but then it's like a typical jam situation, right, where you just don't have the time to implement that. But yeah, that was like the biggest thing, and then just some other things like some bugs that were pretty annoying. The discard being a bit too slow, since you do it so often. I'm probably forgetting some figure row if you know some of the bigger ones. Feel free to add something here.
Yeah, sure. So, along as what you've said, there's been a lot of feedback regarding like the tutorial and making it
Mm.
playable, which was the original plan, but due to time and circumstances, it
Yeah.
was put to text. Better to have one than none, as they say. Um, we could add we could have added a little bit more detail with making sure that players knew that there are bonus effects. Great job noticing that at the very beginning and really taking that into account when you plant crops.
Mm.
But I think some people didn't realize that when playing the game.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
that's
Mm.
so
And
yeah,
also,
that's
yeah, also checking out which tile has which, crop and what growth that is and stuff like that. I think that was also some of the bigger issues.
yeah, that too.
Mm. Sure.
And just so I know, Gingerbread and Ro, okay, Gingerbread, what was your role on the team?
Oh yeah, so I was sort of the team leader-ish sort of guy, and I was also responsible for sort of the actual Unity implementation. So kind of the like a bit of a coding and animations and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. And as for your part, Ro?
Yeah, so I was also one of the programmers, and yeah,
Okay. Yeah, just because I wanted to have some context for like anything that I was like saying about the game. And so, how many people were working on this exactly? Because I saw like a pretty long list.
Yeah, so I think we were 30 people, at the end of the day. We started
Oh
out
my
with
gosh!
14, I think, and then, yeah, it was 30 at the end. Yeah.
Wow, that's
That's quite a lot.
it
Yeah.
is. It is. It's definitely like I guess for a month-long game jam that becomes more possible to coordinate a larger team like that. But yeah, that's just certainly more than I'm used to hearing about. But
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting challenge. The biggest issue for us was, time zones, since we literally had people from all around the world, from America to Australia to Europe. That was definitely the biggest issue for coordination. Like, yeah.
right, absolutely. So again, before I make any particular suggestions, you mentioned that there was like already something in mind for how you'd reshuffle um, the sort of card generation. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Ro, do you want to say something? I think you worked on this more than me.
yeah. So with the card generation, originally our game designers had come up with basically a fixed number for certain things to be put in the card deck. So, like for instance, in a traditional like card deck, like you'd have four kings, right?
Mhm.
Um, that sort of thing. And so our game designers had written it out and everything, but I guess it was lost in the shuffle, no pun intended, of the game jam and wasn't properly communicated with our programmers. And so instead of having that sort of preset balance,
Mhm.
the game deck ended up being RNG produced. So it was randomly generated what cards will show up, etc. So that's basically what was happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
right now the only like real cards that edit automatically to your inventory are the three acres at the, or like acres at the beginning of the game, and other than that, there's really RNG involved, which is
mhm.
I think the game's biggest issue for me personally.
Yeah, so the only experience I had with that actually was somewhat recently for the most recent GMTK Jam. I made a game that was like vaguely well, I shouldn't say this is very much a like Slay the Spire inspired game. Um, and I had this same sort of like balancing act to think of in terms of what cards to put in the deck. So it sounds like the solution that you're going for is going to be to actually pick out lists of cards. And if I I can pull this up in front of me as a reference. That's going to be under projects, dice spec, and then the Google Sheets. This should be it. Yeah, here we go. So this is a spreadsheet that I created to actually track the number of cards that were kept in the deck of each variety. Um, and this is it sounds like this is what you're opting for, but just it's just not the way that the game is right now. There's just a percentage chance of any given card showing up in your hand each turn.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But yeah, so I guess I don't know. Do you have a spreadsheet like this that is tracking like the different cards that can appear in the game, their effects, and so on?
Oh yeah, it was also a spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet, also with the number of cards and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's what the designers work on most of the time, and just making sure that we can then implement that into Unity. And, yeah, what's needs to say it's all.
Yeah, I always like to make these colorful spreadsheets, like even if I'm in the middle of a jam, because I just find that it helps keep the information clear. And the GMTK jam was only like a 3-day affair, but I imagine it's a lot easier to maintain documentation if you have more time. Um, so by the way, how much of the like 30-day period would you say you actually spent working on the game?
No, it was definitely a tight one. So we started, I think, one day after the launch, basically,
Mhm.
since we all wanted to wait for the theme, and also we just had to find a spot where everyone could attend first, right? So what we did is we had like a when to meet or something like that. I don't know, maybe it was a spreadsheet as well, where
Mhm.
everyone could just write when they have time, and then we would try to find the maximum sort of time point where everyone has time. Um, and that was, that took a bit of time. So to give everyone a bit of time to, plan ahead. And then, after that, we spend, I think the entire duration of the jam, we had some last minute additions too. And so around 3 or 4 sprints, I think. Yeah.
Hmm. So that's the just like what was the duration of each sprint?
It was always 1 week, and then for the last sprint, we had 2 more days since just made no sense to have a 2-day sprint.
Mhm. And I guess the other thing I should ask is, um, based on the reception you've had to the game so far and how you think it turned out, like, do you have plans to continue development of the game?
Yeah, we already had some internal discussions about this, and we just said for now we'll just wait out and see what the results are. We are interested in actually, fixing the game's biggest issues and that sort of stuff, but anything else is, totally, vague and undecided. But we'd really like to fix the bugs, the one that's really driving us crazy, which a lot of people sadly do experience, where you start just drawing 4 cards and then 3 cards. It's really annoying. It's really game breaking. That's really stuff that I'm personally interested in, and just some of the other parts. Like the RNG is definitely the biggest thing. But that's sort of it for now. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's at least plans to get you to the point of a little bit of polish, and then any ideas in terms of like further development is kind of contingent on it's another like 27 days while the jam's still running
Yeah,
to
I
get
think
the
stuff like that.
feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long time to vote.
Yeah. So apparently almost 27 days to the minute.
It's quite that. Well done.
All right. So I guess in terms of actual feedback on the game itself, I think that having some way to accelerate, like as I said, sort of investing money in accelerating your progress throughout the game is one option. Or even like, are there plans to adjust the balance of the economy in the game?
You mean like adjusting the prices? Is that what you mean? Or do you
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
something else?
I mean, I just say the economy in general because it seems like early on it's very easy to run out of money, and then even just a few yields in, you're already at a place where you are very unlikely to run out of money.
Oh, yeah, that's what you mean. We didn't write it down explicitly, but I think it's definitely the thing. It's just not the highest priority. So what I realized is that the strawberries are just massively OP, right? They yield something like 66 coins or something, whereas
Mhm.
like pork yields, I don't know, three coins or something. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's like three or four.
also something. Yeah, I realized. Yeah, but it's not the highest priority for us.
Mhm. Oh, and then tooltips, right? Like having an actual being able to measure or like just see where how things are at, like how much longer something's going to take, and just even remind you what something is. Because I'm sure the artist remembers what each of these little crops is, but what each of these crops are. But on the other hand, I feel like the average player might not exactly be able to look at a little growing sprig and be like, is that strawberries or wasabi?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's definitely one of the higher priority ones. Just even being sure of which tile is that. And also from a gameplay perspective, how long do I need until I get my strawberry or something? Yeah, it's true.
Are you thinking of having any other like crop adjacencies, like bonuses for different things being planted next to each other?
No, for now we just want to actually work on the, like you said, like the polish.
Hmm.
That stuff. So we don't really want to focus on adding new stuff and risk breaking more. But yeah, it's just about polish for now.
Okay. So I guess in terms of um, the original objective for the game, was it just to create like a reasonably chill, anyone can get through this sort of experience, um, minor like obviously there are things to pay attention to, but it's not like something dies if you plant it on the wrong kind of land. It just takes slightly longer. So
Yeah, so from the beginning, we definitely wanted to make it like a casual sort of
mhm.
experience. We didn't want to add this theme of cliche by just using the farms of the theme, right? And not having just not putting stress on the player.
Mhm.
Just something you could play for a bit and relax. I think the music does a great job. Complementing that, just like the art and I've heard people say, maybe you should get rid of the time limit, right? So after 4 years, you lose, right? So after 4 years, you have to, I don't know, do all the quests, and just do some sort of endless infinity sort of mode, I suppose.
Mhm.
I don't really, I don't know, I don't like that idea, even though it's a casual game, yes, but I do like this element of challenge in it. You know, that's for me. That's sort of the I don't know what makes a game so cool. I don't know. I like this challenge in it. But I guess you could see. I can see both sides for sure. Yeah.
I forgot there was even a time limit of 4 years, and I feel like I'm going to fail that strictly because I'm not getting the cards I need to plant.
That's what most people have. You know, just it's incredibly difficult to meet because of the RG. Yeah, we even had the limit set so 3 years at first. We kind of incremented the limit to 4 years. In the last sprint or something.
So, are you familiar with the term pre-action luck and post-action luck, sometimes called input and output randomness?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So the easiest way to describe it is by analogy to other games. Pre-action luck is when you draw a hand of cards, and then you have those cards in your hand and you decide what to do with them. And then post-action luck is you put that card down on the table and it does something random that is then out of your control. And you don't, like, maybe you're playing a game like Hearthstone or Magic and you're hoping that this card does a random 4 damage to this enemy right here and it hits the one next to it instead. It's like, darn, that's not what I wanted. In general, having pre-action luck where, like, in this case, you draw a hand of cards and then you have to think about, okay, what am I actually going to do with these cards? And then like that I would say that as a player, I prefer games with that are more heavily weighted to pre-action luck, because when something is post-action luck, you can just end up putting something down and then, oops, things went out of your control. But also, those are the moments of real tension because you're like really hoping that things swing in your way. So even if I'm inclined to say that I prefer games that are much more leaning towards pre-action luck, then I'm fine with the idea of there existing some post-action luck as well. And the reason I bring this up is because this is a game that seems very weighted towards the pre-action luck in terms of what cards you draw. But if there was some like variability in the yield of certain crops, like if you're planting an entire acre of crops at a time, then rather than a single crop producing a single resource as a result, you could say that, like, oh, this is going to produce between like 3 to 5 bushels of corn, and you can have like some crops that are more weighted to, oh, this is a more consistent yield and this is a more variable yield. And I can sort of imagine a situation where maybe there's another adjacency bonus for saying, like, oh, if you plant a high yield wheat next to another high yield wheat, then maybe they will produce a seed that will like also have a high yield wheat. But if you plant a high yield wheat next to a low yield wheat, then maybe you end up with a card in your hand that's another low yield wheat. Like, the things you are putting onto the board are actually influencing the cards that are coming back into your hand. That could be an interesting way of taking things.
So you mean like, oh, sorry, Gino, go ahead.
So you mean like you go ahead, Ro. I'll think about my part first.
All right, okay. So you mean like adding more variability to the game in of itself, and with specifically the cards having more different outcomes is what I'm getting here. Like, for instance, like your yield example.
Mm-hmm.
So right now there's the bonus effects where it depends on what the season you plant, or the season the crop grows in, or the season it harvests, or the location you plant it in, so like hills or plains.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, the neighbors, so the neighboring tiles, and that's what it depends on. But what you're suggesting is have all of those too, but also have effects where a neighboring crop affects the crop itself, and then that will affect some form of the card generation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, like it's again, it's not even a direction that I can imagine you necessarily want to go in because, as you said, like you're not thinking about how much you're going to expand the gameplay before you just nail down the polish on things a bit more. But just once my brain started going down that route, I was like, oh, you've got some concept of adjacency bonuses already. I wonder if you could have the it's a very real thing of like cross pollination and trying to like breed better varieties of wheat or something like adding a sort of because it's a mechanic in Slay the Spire where you can get like you might start the game with a basic like slash card, but then you'll get to a certain point where you have the ability to upgrade a card of your choice, and now it becomes slash plus, and it either costs less mana or deals more damage or something like that. And the idea of like starting the game with oats, but then you get a good like by the way that you plant things strategically, you can breed a oats plus card, and then now your deck is going to have less of the bad variety and more of the good variety. Really just whenever I see a sort of deck building game, and this is not a deck building game. This is just a game that has, well, actually, from the sounds of it, doesn't actually have a deck. It just has a cards that are randomly generated. But if you wanted to, there are a lot of mechanics you could take from a deck building experience.
Yeah, our game designers have a lot of ideas that we've been like discussing and such. And I think that probably when they see this, they will have a lot to discuss and to think about. But as like Gino has already said, we're kind of putting all those additions to the side until we get
of course.
the stuff polished. But yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. I'm not a designer, I'm a programmer. I think the idea of upgrading the cards themselves is neat. I'm not so sure about like the breeding aspect, so like, having high yield neighboring to low yield, because that might slightly make it a lot more complex. Because like what if you have, so you plant a crop in the middle and then you have like 6 neighbors because there's 6 sides, so hexagon. What will that yield? That's something to also think about. Like, do you take all of the crops around you into calculation? I guess that's a designer thing to think about. But just from my opinion, I think if there was an option to upgrade a card in the shop and put that into the generation, I think that might be a little bit more easier to grasp and more in line with the design philosophy of this game. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Gina?
Yes, I'm actually asking myself, do we really want like another element of randomness in the game? That's sort of the main question that I'm like interested in. So we're trying to get rid of the old element of randomness.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a risky idea of just saying, let's see, like that's a new one. Let's see what happens. I do get the idea. I definitely do. I think there's like also when we speak about this pre and post luck, I think is what you said, right?
Yeah, pre-action and post-action luck.
Oh, action. Okay, yeah, right. I think there's like this shop element, right? Like you mentioned, you'd want to see what's also added like next season. We actually experimented with, when you had like jotted down some new ideas, we actually experimented with some other luck ideas, like RNG based ideas, like what about events that happen every year, or I don't know, stuff like that. And it's nice to think about it, I think, but it's incredibly difficult to actually uh, talk about it without the designers already, having to think about, does that really work? Is it going to make the game super difficult to balance and that sort of stuff? I think RG is just a pretty heavy tool to, for the game. It's just, yeah. But I do like thinking about it, actually. We collected a lot of ideas and, stuff to enhance the game, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you did lean into more of the commerce side of things rather than the like placing things in the crossbreeding kind of things, like that absolutely makes sense. Having an ability in the shop to spend your money on upgrading the yields of your plants, like looking at the deck of cards that you have, and then you'd be deciding, are you going to upgrade things in the discard pile, or are you going to be upgrading things in the draw pile? Like, do you allow the player to upgrade something before they're about to draw it into their hand, or do you say you're only allowed to upgrade something and then you have to wait for it to get shuffled back into your deck? Because those both create different kinds of tensions. Obviously, if you can upgrade something that you're about to draw, then it sort of incentivizes you to wait until the draw pile has been whittled down a bit, because then if you upgrade something with a mostly empty draw pile, you're more likely to actually draw that card into your hand. If you allow the player to upgrade something in the discard pile, then you want to upgrade things in there as well, actually that kind of takes away the tension, because if it's all going to get jumbled together, then it doesn't matter when you do it. So I'm not sure, but I'm certainly like not hurting for money in this game. So I think having more ways to kind of keep the economy flowing would be beneficial.
Oh yeah, definitely. So in the there's like some jam discussions as well in the I don't know, it's like this rating panel on itch, right? I saw a pretty interesting comment which actually tried to target the issue with the RG by saying, I've got so much money, right? Like you have 800 coins at the moment, right? I've got so much money. What if I could just spend that to redraw one card, and then each time I use this ability, it's going to be more expensive? I thought it was a really interesting sort of idea. Just not the way we try to target the root problem, right? But I think it's an interesting attempt at solving both issues. But I do agree that you have not enough. You don't have enough ways
economy
to spend your money, I
sinks.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I made a very similar suggestion early on, was like having the first discard on your turn be free, and then each subsequent discard costing a little bit more. So where did the idea come from to actually make it a like card-based game?
Yeah, from the very beginning. We actually tried to adapt the game on some like rudimentary ideas that we had. So we redesigned like a first draft of like a document of a GDD, which already had like cards in mind, and it kind of had like a different idea of how to use this world map. You originally had some figures that would move around, and then you, I don't know, do some sort of actions. It was sort of action based rather than card based, and then the cards would just represent your inventory more. But then we let the designers do their cool work, and then they kind of ram it with the concepts, and then it turned more into a card based game rather than a game that has cards.
Yeah, just because like I like the idea of having to think about what's in your hand and play to the strengths and weaknesses of what's available to you in that moment. I was just thinking about like, how did you arrive at like as far as I see it, like some of the pros and cons of having a card-based game are the ideas of managing your card draw or managing your discard rate, or like, is your entire hand discarded at the end of your turn, or do you keep the cards like in both this game and in the game that I made. There's the player holds on to any unspent cards at the end of your turn, which in this game is actually a little bit of a detriment, because you can end up in these situations where you're not getting the cards that you need. I just realized this entire time I could have put a sheep down here. But yeah, I think I'm going to fail the game because I'm not getting any wheat right now.
Yeah, it's such a, you're not the only one. Like most people have failed, especially like there's different quests, that are basically given to at the beginning of the game, and then again, not only is it tricky RG here in this case, but it's also the quests themselves that differ quite tremendously. So some, you have to do, like you said, I think 9 oaths in total. I mean, right? And then for others, you kind of have that distributed more equally. It's definitely an interesting thing that we need to balance a bit more after we've done the RNG part. I mean, but yeah, true.
Well, I think for now, I would say that maybe we can chat about the game a bit more. Should the like once you've had an opportunity to do that like polishing pass on the game, and you get the results back from the gem, and you decide whether or not this is something you want to like pursue development of, I'd be more than happy to have another conversation about it then, and just see what direction you're headed in. But was there anything else that you wanted feedback on just before we wrap things up for now?
Sounds good. No, I don't think so. Definitely thank you for reviewing your game. That's pretty exciting and pretty cool to see. Yeah. Well, do you have anything?
Not the top of my head. I guess a general question is that is the information of this game communicated to you in a clear and understandable way? How helpful was the tutorial and the card descriptions for you as a player? That sort of thing. Otherwise, well, thank you for reviewing our game and giving us this feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think that all the mechanics in the game are conveyed pretty clearly. I think that the only time that there was that lack of information was once I'd already planted something, and I was just trying to see like, okay, how many turns until this grows? Like, you got these little arrows on the map that really helps to like, it gives me the sense that this is receiving some bonus, but I think like an actual number, maybe if you can fit that somewhere on the tile, like a countdown until that crop is ready to be harvested, would be helpful. Or otherwise, that information could be in a tooltip, but I think there's enough space that it could be represented numerically on the tiles themselves. I don't know. That's more of a UI UX decision. But yeah, in terms of the actual information in the game so far, I think I got the idea pretty well.
Right. Yeah. Just regarding that, I think we also during the jam, we also ask ourselves, should we have like a little clock icon displayed for every tile? It did end up not being implemented, but it was definitely something we thought was interesting. But personally, I think like a hover sort of a panel or something like that, I think it's a better solution. But yeah, I do like the. It sounds interesting at first to have a clock for everything, but I fear that it would be very annoying very fast. Having this clock for every plant that you plant every single turn. I think that could be getting annoying quite quickly. But yeah, it's something we thought about as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, like, rather than having a pop-up to say, like, this is down to this is down to that, if that information was just like when you put your cursor over it, you just see the little number on the hex itself. So you can check on the progress of things, or you can, like, if that feels like its information is too overwhelming to have all the time, then either you put your cursor over each of them, or you have some place on the screen that you put your cursor over and get to see that number over everything. So you can like you can check on it all at once, or you can check on them each individually. Like just you have that balance, so it's not an overload.
Oh yeah, like a tooltip basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's I think the like we said like earlier, one of the higher priority ones. You know.
Well, I've been able to plant everything except for that wheat that just never showed up. So I think that
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah. I think it's
to.
two more turns, and then I think you'll lose. Actually,
Yeah, I was gonna say we're so close to the end here, unfortunately. Um, of
Well, you have one more year left, and the first quest.
Mhm.
So what's important is the wording. It says plant, so you automatically um, you know keep completing your quest when you plant something. You don't necessarily have to harvest it. So you
Mhm.
could be on winter year 4 and plant those 2 wheat tiles and complete the quest step.
oh wait, I just saw it's year 3. I thought it was year 4.
Oh,
That's
I see.
embarrassing.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
year 4.
yeah.
Okay, so I have a
It's
little
year
bit more
3.
time. You fail if you don't complete them by the end of year 4. So I would have one more full year in the game. But given my luck so far, I don't think I'm going like it has been like 10 turns since I've seen any wheat, let alone like I need to have 5 wheat by the end of the game. And like I don't think it's gonna come together, unfortunately. So I think we'll wrap things up there. But thank you so much for both of you to both of you
Yeah.
for joining me on the stream and discussing the game. As I said, if you do want to send another updated version of the game my way, I'd be more than happy to like pick up the conversation. If there's any other team members you want to bring on at that point, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. This was really interesting, really fun to see. Thank you.
All right. Have yourselves a good day then, and bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
You
Bye
as well. Thank
Thank you.
you.